Okay, so in this video we're looking at pound USD on the 60 minutes, right? Now, same concept. So let's say the markets are in this uptrend here, right? We're looking at this miniature uptrend on a higher time frame. We'll see some kind of buyer's territory kick in here. Of course, there's an overall territory here also, but we're not looking at that. We're looking at the immediate markets so we can get a grasp of what do we need to do if we have to trade today. Okay, so we're looking at the market going up, very aggressive. You and I can both agree. But then look at the pullback that start to come in. Even though the pullbacks are coming in one push, two push, and then a V formation. Now, I want you to look at this whole scenario to understand why is it acting so aggressive. Not only is it acting aggressive, I want you to absorb all the information that you can get from it. Not just that it's come down in multiple legs, it's done a V formation, people must be panicking and hitting the sell buttons. No, not that. I want you to look at it. It's so aggressively in a buyer's market, okay, which has everyone jumping in. Then it becomes so aggressively in the seller side, in which the buyers don't even have a glimpse of stepping in between. Okay, no separation of buyers that come in that looks like they're coming in with force, and then the leg tool is going to begin. Then it comes down again in 3 candles, leaves a wick on the bottom, and then it starts to make a V. But look at this V. One candle, no V yet. Next one, doji, almost a V. Next one, candle, but look at the big wick on top. Okay, so that's V, but what in the world is this thing? What is there so much selling pressure? And then look at that. If you're waiting for a test, 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 lower low. Now in this whole lower low process, it's like, wait a minute. If you were to have automatically chased it, or said, let me get into this probe area right here where the V formation happened, that means this bottom here was a faker. I can just hit the buy right there. It does react. Maybe you might not hit the buy there, but when the next candle starts to show green when the wick happened, you might hit the buy there thinking, oh my god, it's leaving. I can't believe I didn't get in on this. But do you see how this can be enticing? So if you were to make a rule of thumb of what takes priority, the story or the design, and it will always come back to the story. I want you guys to always remind yourself of that. Is the story, is it clear enough? If it's not clear enough, your designs are gonna be broken. Your designs are gonna be broken and your designs will not work at that stage. Okay, so when we're looking at this and then this thing starts to pull back in deeper, okay, it starts to slow down, but then it rushes again. Recent low bounces up again. Few candles in the nearby area, drops down and pops up. Now this one, look at the aggression of this V formation here. Very, 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 very aggressive, followed by a test because it's an aggressive V formation, followed by a test that's to the other side of SNR. Okay, what used to be your resistance has now become your support. It's starting to slow down here, and then it starts to take off. Okay, so you gotta feel the rhythm. You gotta feel the rhythm of what is going on in the market. Okay, now let's take a look at this entire area, and I'm gonna show you if you can feel the rhythm. What you're actually monitoring is something that is going to be available even on a higher time frame. Okay. Okay, this one is not so clear enough, but generally when you start to see stuff like that and you're like, oh, I don't think it's gonna go right now, it's gonna go later, it's gonna start showing up on the radar of the higher time frame as well. So let's say this was our buyer's territory, right? If this pullback right here, if this pullback is where it first started, then it rested, then the next pullback came in, you know, it can show up on a higher time frame, which then becomes a daily 4-hour trade, which means that the chances of the trade traveling is going to be further, because you're no longer trading this based on the 4-hour, 1-hour, for example. So let me show you that again. As a 4-hour, 1-hour trader, your job is to get that buy and take profit at recent high. Okay. But if you know this whole thing, because it's pulled back so much, it's starting to show up on a higher time frame, then it can play according to the higher time frame's momentum, which is something what we call an eclipse, which means one time frame is lining up with another time frame. Those trades generally have a very good risk to reward trades because you're entering based on the lower time frame, but you're exiting based on the higher time frame. It's high risk to reward, but then you have to be super pro at it to not get stopped out prior to the blast, because the whipsaws also come based on the higher time frame. So you got to be careful of that. Okay? So in this period, when you see you need to hold off and not buy here, but buy later on, can also mean of, okay, so much more time has passed by. I wonder who else sees this, okay, as in terms of big boy. Okay, the average retail trader is oblivious to this because he's looking at this as sells. And in fact, more sellers jump in here once it breaks the recent low, right? Once it breaks the recent low, they're like, oh my God, of course, it's a sell. And as everyone hits the sell, they get wrong-footed, trade jumps in the opposite direction. As once trade jumps into the opposite direction, maybe even a higher time frame gets involved. And that's when you have some aggressive moves all the way to the top. Okay? So some things to keep in mind. Alright, so let's take a look at another example.